Well, hello everyone. It's good to have you back in my YouTube channel. What I wanted to talk to you today is an experience that I just had with a couple of colleagues here at work, and many of the aspects of this session I have to give credit to Leslie Hattem and Judith Labelle, my two colleagues from primary, which I had the pleasure to take part of one of the lessons, and they were working on the different advice that can be given to students to become independent learners. And is something that I consider crucial, in particular for the students that are finishing primary and moving into secondary. And is very common to see secondary teachers complaining because their students that just arrive are not independent enough. So how can we then put in place steps to taking control of the learning of the students? How can we give them advice? What kind of activities can we practice with them to make sure that they become independent learners? So how can we make sure that they develop self-management skills? So what we're going to do today is just look at, again, these self-management skills as the cornerstone, as the main skills that are needed from my point of view to become an independent learning. Being independent learner means being able to go through the learning journey on your own, trying to be able to organize yourself, to meet deadlines, to face challenges, and to be able to conduct research without any particular support, and then not being afraid of taking risks. So what we do with these self-management skills, those are the skills that allow us to become independent learners, because we're able to use our skills to acquire knowledge, learn new things, and above all, set and achieve goals which we know they're achievable. And this is very important because sometimes the goals that some students set are too complicated, too challenging, and those goals, instead of motivating the students and push them for improvement, will be counterproductive. So what are these basic self-management skills? What type of skills do we think that students should develop in order to become independent learners? The first one is to be able to be organized, to develop organizational skills. What does that mean? This does not only mean the capacity to organize your time and work on a calendar or an agenda and getting used to look at your agenda every afternoon or every day and making sure what the deadlines are, not only for the day after, but for the week, but also try to organize your physical space, your desktop, your room, your surroundings. Try at the same time to organize your energy and your mental capabilities. So making sure that you are ready to produce some work and making sure that the energy it's there, as well as your brain is there. You also need to be able to have a goal setting approach and have clear in your mind what do you want to achieve. And what I think is most important is that what you want to achieve must be clear, well defined, and again achievable. It's important that you make sure that what your goals are achievable goals with more or less effort, but achievable. In terms of time management is part of these organizational skills, but looking more into the list of tasks that you have and prioritizing what is more important. And not only that, while trying to reach those tasks, while working on that prioritization, make sure that you avoid distractions and you maintain focus. And I think it's something that affects not only the students, but also the adults. The distractions of the phone, the emails, our family duties, and so on. So making sure that we have the moment and the time to dedicate to our work, avoiding any kind of distraction. Being self-motivated, so taking initiative and making sure that you finish a task every time you start one. So instead of trying to multitask, make sure that we focus on one, and when we start it, we continue till we finish it, until we know it is completed. And finally, I don't like the word stress management, to be honest, but it's the only one that came up to my mind when we look at the holistic aspect of healthy diet, exercise, take activities like meditation, like whatever works for us that brings calm into our environment. So all these aspects are aspects that we need to take into consideration. Now, if we need to give advice to students in this case and want to tell them how could they grow as independent learners, these are the list of things that we will need to support them in trying to put those things in place. The first one is assessing your strengths. And what I'm going to do is after that, I'm going to show you one way of doing it, which I find extraordinary. Yeah. So assessing your strengths, then of course, is very much linked to the previous slide. Prioritizing your responsibilities, having organizational systems, yeah, where you can have your calendar, your agenda, your notebook, that's up to you. Then you create deadlines and you meet those deadlines, even creating mini deadlines along the way. Perform one task at a time. We just mentioned that aspect of avoiding multitasking before, but perform one task at a time. Practice patience and take care of your health and wellness, which means having time to do sport, to be creative, to practice music, to socialize. So we're trying to move away from the strict academic perspective and making sure that if we want balanced students, balanced means not only being strong in the academic side of things, but also showing interest in other aspects that will help you to develop other skills. Like again, creative skills through music, through sport, through reading, through watching videos, through socializing, collaborating. All these aspects are important for the health and the wellness. So we're going to go back to these ideas later on once we're going to talk about the wheel graph that we're going to present as an activity to develop those aspects. So this is pretty much focusing more primary or lower secondary students. A couple of steps that we want to practice with the students so they become independent. The first one, asking questions. And we do have some sessions in this channel about essential questionings, about inquiry, and about the importance of questioning in class. So it's important that the students can ask questions, but not only questions in terms of learning, but questions in terms of organizing. What comes next? Am I doing right things? Am I taking the right steps? Am I clarifying all the situation by asking questions? And not being afraid of asking for an extra explanation. The clearer it is, the more independent they will become. Now, the step 2 would be to use the resources around them. Of course, internet is a very important resource center, and we did work on research skills in one of the previous sessions. So I invite you to go back to what research skills are and how those research skills, when they're gained, how can they support us in becoming independent learners. But it's important to look at any kind of resource we have. Human resources, being the parents, being colleagues, being the teacher, but also notes taken during previous lessons, internet, documentaries, books, magazines, everything that can help us to have a clear understanding on what we're doing. The step 3, I think collaboration is huge. It's massive. So it's important that we as teachers make sure that we have time for the students to collaborate in class, because through collaboration, they can see other points of view, they can learn from other points of view, they can share their knowledge, they can develop communication skills, and they can particularly well develop the listening capacities in order to gain new knowledge. So using the other ones as a source of expertise, using the other ones as resources, and that can only be done by collaboration. And strategies to collaborate, there are many, and we can have a session on collaboration skills later on. Step 4, this is more a personal approach, yeah, making sure that we persevere, we avoid frustration, or we know how to face frustration, or even we know how to learn from failing. And it's important that we persevere, because we will face very often frustrating situations. And the only way to face those frustrations is through perseverance. Step five, of course, it's the interconnections that we can have between subjects, between teachers, between resources, trying to reflect systematically about the new information that we're learning. Think about in which way this information connects with previous learning, with what we know, with what we've heard, with what we shared. So making connections in the learning helps. Avoid learning on isolation. Avoid thinking that, oh, I'm learning maths here and I can only relate to mathematics. Try to find the links to give meaning to your learning, because the more the learning is meaningful, the more it will stay in our brain. The more what we learn makes sense and is purposeful, the better. What can I say about making links with real life situation? Yeah, making connections that are meaningful to us. Be creative. And I think that's very important. Trying to find the way for you that works. And be creative. Don't try to copy anybody else in the way they organize themselves. Just try to get to know yourself, what works, what doesn't. And make sure that creativity is part of your daily routines, in terms of not only thinking outside of the box, but trying to think in the way it works for you. So you need to reflect on your own learning process. What about taking risks? If we never take risks, if we never experience failure, that we will never learn how to get it right. And it's important that when we take risks, the teachers support that by giving feedback which is meaningful, which is positive, but the one that also highlights the aspects to be developed, the even better if. So feedback is crucial in the way we teachers give it, but feedback is crucial in the way it's taken by the students and the way in which students build up on the feedback received. They build up their learning. And I think this is very important, because in order to accept feedback, you need to be a risk taker, because you need to take the risk to try and implement new things that have been given to you. So both things go together. Remember, it's all about you. It's all about us. It's all about learners. And at the end, if we're not willing to learn, then nothing of these will work. We will never be able to support, to help a student if this student is not ready to, or is not willing to learn, to take risk, to collaborate, to be organized, to become independent. It has to be a wish first, and then we can support the student in this difficult journey. Now, this is the activity that I'm proposing that you can do with your students, and I think it's extraordinary. You have this document here, and you can create your own and then modify the words that are around this wheel graph. And if you want, if you send me a message through the chat, I'm happy to send you the PDF version or the Word version. And then what you do is that you have in the center me as a learner, so the student itself, or yourself if you want to do it for yourself. And that it helps you to consider, to reflect, where are you in each one of these different aspects of the wheel? How are you in terms of asking questions, using resources, collaborating? Are you perseverant enough? Do you make connections? Are you creative enough? Do you take risks? So what you can see in this wheel is all these little points that we've been talking about in this session, about what does it mean to be an independent learner. And this is how it looks like. Yeah, this is how a student will fill it in. It will give a grade by coloring in each one of the levels, if you want, and it gives this impression of a spider web chart. And then students can have these as a visual object in front of them, and you can even ask them to print it and to stick it on their desk. So when you talk to them, you know what are the strengths and the aspects to be developed for each one of the students. And then you can support them and you can push them in the development of some of these aspects. For example, in this example, we have a student who's quite low in taking risks. So what can you do to support him? So probably every time you are going to mention risk taking in class, or you're going to propose an activity that's related to that, you're going to target these students. You're going to make it explicit. And you're going to say, wait, little Johnny, here you're taking risk a little bit lower. What about working on this particular activity? And so having it visually, it helps you as a teacher, but I think it helps students when filling it in, to get to know what is their profile in each one of these aspects. The other thing is that you can completely change this wheel graph by changing the words. And you can put whatever you want. You can put character traits. For example, you can make, if you're an IB teacher, you can put the learner profile traits in there if you want. You can put skills there, and then you will see and you will make the students reflect on the way they develop skills for themselves. And then maybe what you want to do after that is to create a debate, or you want the students to reflect on a written form about the results that they had in this activity. Again, a very interesting document that I really loved, and I saw students using it, and it was meaningful. They were excited, they were engaged, and they were able to reflect on their own performance just by filling these in. And the teacher was able to lead a discussion that was going on in class and to make comparisons and to have the students working in collaboration. And again, what are the highest scores? What are the lower scores? The debate and the reflection, it can be done in many ways. And I'm sure you'll be able to come up with examples on how to develop further these type of activities. And then you can have, for example, a self-reflection process, which means that once I've recognized my strengths and my weaknesses, what my next steps will be for me to develop certain aspects. What will I do? And then I will try to make it explicit, and I will be celebrating my improvement in class. So next steps for you, what about giving the students opportunities to start developing their independent learning skills through this activity or through any other? Make them remember the actions you set for themselves to develop the ones that they need to develop further. What about asking them to self-monitor their own learning? In any case, make sure that reflection is systematic in your lesson so your students can become independent learners. I hope you found this activity useful, and again, if you want this resource, feel free to write on the chat with your email and I'll be more than happy to send it to you. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.